Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's do the rundown. Let's break everything down. Let's start off with the coming matchup, Bilibili versus Weibo Gaming. I think that I will spend the most amount of time on JDG T1 because I think that the Bilibili Weibo matchup is, let's be honest, a little bit less interesting. And plain and simple, let's just get into the conversation. I think a key thing here for Bilibili is that Elk has a very strong champion pool. I think this I want to highlight. I think the fact that Elk, the meta is shifting towards a direction where Elk becomes a superstar. Elk in the world of Aphelios, the world of Ashe, the world of long-ranged ADs is brilliant. I think that even though Light has shown some impressive performances and some good champions, I think that he has not played up against stronger bot lanes. I think that Weibo is a little bit inconsistent in their mid game to convert leads, and I think also the early game is not consistent enough to create big enough leads. And I think as long as Bilibili find like the right mid lane champions to play, because I think when Nico is out and Orianna is out, I think this will be very contested. I think this is where things will get quite interesting. I think another thing that's so cool about Bilibili is the fact that they showed Rumble, they showed Jarvan, they also showed the fact that they are willing to play Aatrox, and we just added pool to Bin's champion pool. That I think that what could be concerns if you hadn't seen this best of five, this particular best of five, Bilibili versus Genji, could be concerns coming up against Weibo, because some of these champions they just plain and simple didn't play, right? Shun played Jarvan before this. He did play Jarvan one game, the last one against G2, and now he picked up Jarvan, played it 5, right? I think that the fact that Bin is capable of playing all of the current meta champs and still be able to play his own champs, I think that he put so much pressure in champion select. Someone said in chat the Shai's champs are stronger in this meta than Bin's champs. It's like, what is the Shai's champs, right? It's K'Sante, Rumble, Aatrox, Gnar, and sometimes Cannon. So I don't want to remind you, but Bin has one of the greatest greatest Gnars on Earth, you know? He played really good Rumble. Like, he played such a great Rumble in these games that was super good. I think that Bin's K'Sante has become fucking monstrous. I think that he can play Jax in any matchup, right? I think the take that the Shy is better at Rumble, and that I think that the champions that the Shy has preferred to play are pretty good right now. But I think that Bin has such good coverage over what the meta is. He plays Gnar, he plays K'Sante, he plays Renekton. I think Bin's Rumble was not good when Zeus the Shy Rumbles exist. He won the game. Mate, his Rumble was really good. At least when I'm watching lane phase, my memory of his Rumble was pretty fucking good. Keep in mind, I haven't started talking about the Shy yet. I don't... Might want to go back and watch his ults. I remember great ults. I remember good ults. I think that Rumble is strong enough that you get away with a little bit more, right? I think that, like, at least in my memory, what sticks out, right? Well, what sticks out for me about Bin, there are certain angles that were so beautiful. Let me highlight them, right? For example, let's say Genji versus Billy game 5. That was a monstrous Rumble game, right? There was a situation on top side. So first, like, we saw the lane condition. Like, he won the lane condition really hard top to create the dive circumstance, right? That was like super good, you know? And then the continuation. I'm trying to remember if this was the game. Maybe it was the game 2 that happened. That it happened. Let me take a look if it was the case. This is where, like, he created perfect conditions to dive the Aatrox. Like, these are the things that are important to me, you know? These are the things that stand out to me the most. And it was a situation in terms of how he played out, right, on the gank on top. This is like beautiful fucking Rumble gameplay, you know? There was also in that game 5 situation, they dove top both games. And in that game 5, I remember also like when they were posturing for Nash. Let's find it. Yeah, this is a fat Rumble ult too, bro. Oof, beautiful. Fat Rumble ult, man. Everyone's getting barbecued, man. These are the things that stand out to me, you know? Maybe there's some ults there or overheats that maybe are not that great, but I think like principally he's doing good. Obviously, what I showcased here is a very biased sample because this is what just happens to stand out in my mind, you know? I think that his Rumble is really fucking solid, you know? Really solid. Which is my point. I think that he does super well. So I think in my mind, if I think about the top lane matchup, I do think that Bin is favored. I think Bin is favored, right? But I think it's important to highlight that Deshai has had a really good tournament. Really good tournament. I think that Deshai has been no slouch. It's like the criticism towards Deshai, if anything, is that when Weibo prepare for objectives, he tends to be very loose with his finger. He gets chunked, he gets caught ahead of those objectives when he over postures. He plays too instinctually for those situations. I really don't like. I really don't like how he plays out those situations, and I think that he definitely will be punished harder against Bilibili. You know. In terms of jungle, I think Weiwei is one of the strongest performing junglers. I think like really, if we look at the top 4 teams, we have the best 4 junglers in terms of performance. There's like no jungler that has cheated his way to here. I think that there's no jungler that deserves more than these guys. I think like Weiwei, Owner, Shun, and Kanavi, they've had the best performances. I think Weiwei has been super good. I think the matchup against Shun, like Shun really found himself again on Javan. Kaz can be discussed too. I think Kaz has had a very solid performance, yeah. But I think the issue with Kaz, right, is the fact that he really relied on Sejuani and then Viego, and Viego is not good in every spot, right? I think Sejuani really made his top laner better, and Katie, unironically, was the best early game team at this tournament. But they really didn't have the macro to really make them really insane. I think that they won the LCK regular split in summer due to how good they were in early game, and I think the teams that they played up against had very little resistance in terms of how they pressure you when you want to close out games. I think that's what makes T1 such an outlier coming out of LCKs, because their pacing in the game and how they pressure Nash and how they convert leads is very LPL-esque, you know? Very LPL-ish, you know? Which makes them really compete well when they have advantages, right? KT couldn't convert this, and I think KT was one of the strongest early game teams, but as a chatter mentioned, like the fact that Kaz didn't play Javan, like that's a really big negative, you know? So I think Shun and Weiwei, I think they are on a very similar level. You actually chose Weibo. I know I didn't choose anything yet. I didn't choose anything. I can't have nothing clicked. Like it's just clicked, you know? I didn't choose anything yet. Additionally, right, I think that a key thing here for Shun is the fact that Vi is relevant again, Wukong is relevant again, Javan is relevant again, and Poppy. I think these are junglers that Shun is very good on. So I think that the flaw of Shun is covered coming into this, right? In terms of mid lane, I think that's where the biggest question mark is, because both Yagao and Xiaohu have had very uninteresting tournaments. Let's be perfectly honest. they have had very uninteresting tournaments, and this comes from a guy, I hyped him up big time. It's like, there's a bunch of mid laners that I hyped up, like Scout, fucking Yagao, and Jahu too. They've had very, very rough tournaments. And I think that both of these players, it's like, I think that you shouldn't give Jahu Nico, you shouldn't give any of them Oriana. And then when these two are out, all of a sudden we're going to see some Ari, Talia action. And I think that, funnily enough, right? Funnily enough, Yagao and Jahu will move to similar champions after bans. It's like some mid laners are going to be wanting to play the Akali, the Sylas in that direction, while these guys will show up with a little Talia action, a little Ari action, and still maybe Sylas even, because both of them play Sylas. I think that the credit you can give to Yagao is that he has played against tougher mid laners, because Bilibili actually had to go through hellfire to get here, while Weibo had a pretty easy time, right? So you can give that as a credit to Yagugu. In terms of bot lane, I straight up think that Bilibili's bot lane is just better. I think Crisp and like what Light had as an advantage, right? I think that Light is the guy coming out of LPL with a very large champion pool. But I think that he's very, very good against anyone that isn't above him, right? Like, out of the ADs left in the top 4, I don't think that Light holds a candle to the rest, right? And I think that as everything is transitioning to longer range ADs, I think that Elk is super, super comfortable. And I don't think that Light has a champion pool advantage here, right? Another additional detail, right, is that I think that On definitely found form. I have to say, even though we talked about the Rumble, I feel like the Senna Tam that they played was quite, let's say, fraudulent, you know? I think that Senna Tam was very, like, was not good. They were really, really not good, you know, for, like, they picked it to play it, but it wasn't, like, that great of a Senna Tam, you know? I've always raised my concerns in regards to playing Senna Tam is that it changes the fabric of how your team needs to play. It's like, so all of a sudden your support needs to farm and your AD needs to place wards and play on tempo. And it's not super easy for a lot of teams to transition into, right? It requires some finesse because it restructures your game. And I think the key thing here is that Bilibili, they're capable of playing Caitlyn. That's going to be contested. Ashe, like all of these ADs that are long range, they're capable of playing, and I think that we'll be able to challenge them in the pool. I think Bilibili converts mid to late game better, and I think Bilibili is favored here. The argument for Weibo, right, if anything, is the fact that you know, Jahu hasn't shown his full form. Weiwei has performed super well, and Weibo hasn't been really tested in terms of their opposition. They lost against KT, of course, which is, you know, on them, and maybe they have more to show. But I think that that is like a very, very tough thing to rely on, right? It's like you can see it both ways. Either you see, well, they didn't have to show much, or they had an easy time getting to this point, right? So Weibo, in order for them to win this, I think they need to show a lot more than they have. And maybe if you are the Weibo coper, like if you're a Kadro fan and you're Kadro himself, you think to yourself, well, maybe they've kept some aces up their sleeve, you know? And I think a big plus, right, from what we've seen, I think that Weiwei and the Shy have had really, really good tournaments. And I think that Crisp is far more comfortable playing the ranged supports than the melee supports. Because for the longest time, he was just picking Leona when Leona is obviously weaker than Alistar, weaker than Rakan. And he kept playing into that while, you know, the ranged supports like the Renata, this is where he seems very, very comfortable. So I think Bilibili here, I think they look favored. And I think that's it for this matchup. T1 versus JDG. This is the most interesting matchup we can have, right? In terms of what both of these teams have showcased at this tournament so far, I think T1 has shown the best possible performance, not best possible, but the best performance out of anyone. They have shown a very, very high level of gameplay, and more so than JDG. JDG, sometimes they can play quite sloppy. Especially a player like Kanavi. He tends to have bad games, bad moments in games, and then they tend to recover. For those who don't know, watching JDG in LPO, right? If you watch JDG in LPO, they dropped games against teams that are way worse than them, and then they came back to win the best of 3. There is an argument to be made for JDG that they definitely adapt to resistance, and the deeper you go into a series, they tend to understand the mechanics of the opposition, and they tend to really, evolve as the series progresses. But that is one of those things that you can rely on until it's not good enough, right? But it has been something that works for JDG the entire year. They've gone to 5 games against T1, even at MSI. They went to 5 games against LNG. And in that fifth game, they look so composed. JDG is a team that you have to beat multiple times because they are very sharp at finding angles and they have the mechanical play to back it up, right? JDG at this tournament came in as the favorite, and there is the element of, KT was quite competitive against JDG, but I reiterate, I think KT still was the strongest early game team that we saw at this tournament. They didn't know how to convert the positions well, but KT is no slouch when it comes to the early game, and they managed to find lead against JDG. I think that game that KT played against JDG, the game 4, was a straight up steal. KT didn't know how to convert the positions at all, and then JDG eventually punished their mistakes, right? BDD had a wonderful performance. I think in terms of lane phase, BDD was insane on the day. And I think that KT, they threw the game big time against JDG in game 4. Ruler played mechanically beautiful in that situation with the Oriana ult at the Nash, but sometimes their early games in terms of some of the fights they choose, sometimes in terms of the decisions that Kanavi makes, they don't happen to convert. Sometimes also Knight dies to ganks that are not necessary and they play on the back foot, right? I think that JDG definitely hasn't showcased at this tournament a much stronger performance than T1. If we think about JDG, what they showcased, I think a really big deal is that Kalista game that they played. You guys remember the Kalista Renata game against Bilibili? That was Bilibili not having a good understanding, right? Good understanding of what it means to, play against such a composition, and they were challenged them a little bit too early and didn't draft well, right? But that game from JDG against Bilibili, they showcased that they are so fucking in tune with the objective of the game, and how they covered for each other was such a dance, such a beautiful dance, such synergy, and they snowballed the game beautifully, I think that was like the peak point of JDG in terms of what we saw, right? I think that we saw also the LNG series that was, a contested series. And I do think that LNG played better than they did against T1 in that one. But that was still quite the close series, right? I think that if we look at T1, right, they started off the tournament quite slow. Like the game against Team Liquid was very disappointing, right? Very disappointing. I think that the evolution of T1 at this tournament has been that they've recognized that they shouldn't play melee supports, right? Still to this day, right, if we look at this tournament, I think that Owner and Korea, they don't cooperate well. So they need to find themselves in draft situations where they don't need to cooperate. And I think this is what they've managed to do super well. So, if you look at their evolution, first you had the T1 TL game, was a close one. And then they faced up against Genji, of course. And that game, you could see that Owner and Korea didn't work together well. in order to secure their side lanes, right? That has been, you know, that was a very, very troublesome game. Like, they had a very strong early game, right? You had they had the Peanut Kazakhs being a non-factor, but then in terms of how, of course, Chovy and of course Delight managed side lane, they managed to punish the enemy team over and over again. And that was, once again, that was a game where Korea played Alistar, Owner played Javan, and the enemy was playing, of course, Kazakhs and Rakan, and they managed to maneuver themselves around the side lane better and better. Now come T1 into the series against, of course, C9. They stomped them flat, just annihilation. Beautiful game from T1, but it didn't tell us too much because T1 just showcased and proved that they're just a better team, right? But then fast forward to the Bilibili T1 series. And I think this was such a strong highlight as to how committed T1 are to this idea, right? And basically, when they play the range supports, the beauty of this is that Korea's job becomes very, very streamlined. Very streamlined. He gets to really, really highlight his strengths, and they don't need to tackle the weaknesses at all. Because how do you play the lane? In most cases, you open on bottom side and you manage the lane. And when it comes to mechanical execution, right? It's like, even though Owner and Korea don't have the best cooperation, mechanically, these two players are fantastic. They are on the top echelon. They are elite of the elite, right? And I've been saying that for a very long time, right? My argument as to why I didn't put Korea in my top 25, even though I even said it in that video, I said, mechanically, he's one of the best players for sure. I had the expectation that we would walk into the World Championship and have a very heavy melee support meta. But T1 has been strong enough to change the course of everything. And that is due to the combination that is Gumayushi and of course Korea. Gumayushi having a very dynamic champion pool. He played the Jinx, he played the Aphelios, he played of course an Ashe game. He has the Draven in his pocket. He played Nyla, they played Senatam, right? I think that you can go so far that the meta at the World Championship would be different if T1 wasn't here. Right? Caitlyn, yes, I forgot Caitlyn. Caitlyn is a very big one, right? So, T1 in the Bilibili series, what did they do? You see, everyone's talking about Faker's itemization, right? Everyone is talking about itemization, and people say, why is he buying Crown? Why is he going full tank? The reason Faker does this is so he can manage side lane on his own. If he can manage side lane on his own, and he can solve his wave states alone, he can let Owner and of course Korea play their own game. He doesn't need any attention. So what happened, right? T1 Bilibili, you see that the support combinations that they play. Yo, Dom, thank you very much for the T1, I appreciate you. The support combinations that the pairings that they have, right? They have Tam Kench, they have the range supports. Korea's role is to stand with Gumayushi on the mid wave. He doesn't need to connect with his jungle. And I think this is the main strength and also the flaw of T1. If they can play a game where they have very strong lane top, very strong lane bot, Owner can play this flexible role where mechanically he can just show off, and Faker can spread himself thin enough to cover for any of the aggression of the enemy, then they get to showcase their mechanical skill, which I think comes to the fights. And if we look at the Bilibili series, even though I always said this, game 1 was lost level 1, right? And I think game 2 On was completely running it down. But what did we learn from that series in my mind is that T1, when they played the range supports, Keria together with Gumayoshi managed bot lane super well, and they transitioned that into mid as well. And Honor and Keria don't need to play a game where they are connected. So what are the biggest strengths of T1? Champion pool top, champion pool bot, right? If they can secure lane phase without the cooperation of jungle, bot, then they are in good form. Same thing for top. If Owner doesn't have timings and beats to hit, I think that he's a very strong player. But when he needs to play a very timing focused game, this is what I'm worried about him, right? A timing focused game. When he can play a more liberal role and he can like play instinctually, I think Owner does a very good job, right? But if he needs to be on bot and protect dives and he needs to be there on stacking waves and so forth, I think this is where he struggles. Because if you put Owner and the rest of T1 in the 5v5 fights around Drake, they are fucking massive. I think that you have two teams here that are insanely good at team fighting. Insanely good at team fighting. If you put them in that spot, right, there's gonna be fucking fireworks. Absolute fireworks. Right? We're going to go into a series, we're going to see some of the greatest team fights ever. 100%. Before I continue, I was quite disappointed because I just wanted to highlight something, because apparently like a lot of my content becomes translated into Korean, and the response was very vitriolic. Like I'm getting comments my way, which is perfectly fine, right? I got comments my way, like as if I said that, as if I insulted Faker and his whole family. Really insane, right? So I went back, right, and I said, is there some nuance to this, right? Is there some nuance to this? Like I was very curious. Is there some nuances? Is there something that I'm missing? Like, was I speaking that harshly? No? It's like I basically made the prediction, right, that Scout would be the better player against Faker, right? And in my mind, right, based off the information available, I think that was a fair assessment to make, right? And I think it's important to make very fair assessments, because when teams and players make breakthroughs, like for example Faker beating out Scout the way he did, right? And Honor having a fantastic performance, right? I think that's crucial to highlight, right? I think that it's essential that you do it based on information, because when teams do better, they should be celebrated for it. Not say, well, I predicted this all along, this is what it was all along, ha ha ha. You're just stupid. No, it's like when a player breaks the expectation that is set based off of information available, that deserves to be celebrated. Faker went through a very tough story, right? He had the injury. He had to take time off, right? Any player that goes through that challenge is going to have a harder time. But then we need to look at what happened in the lobby. And Faker, right? He had a hard time, right? Faker had a hard time in the playoffs, right? I think against BDD and Chovy, these were players that did better than him. And that's like still fine, right? That's still fine. BDD and Chovy had really good form, and Faker came out of a long break. And then he reached this point where he plays against LNG and Faker pops off. He plays a fantastic series. Like how much he moved with Azir into bottom side to cover his bot. He had like this situation where he, had a hard time in lane against Orianna, but fuck Azir against Orianna. Like everyone seems to lose this matchup, right? And then he has a fantastic performance. That's worth to celebrate, because I think that you need to really put the context behind instead of acting as if it's a given, Because the prediction should be rooted on the information available to us. And I will be wrong. I will be wrong. I will be wrong. Because there's so many things that are intangible and it's very hard to measure. Right? He lost lane to Scout as Azir. Yeah, he did. That game 3, he lost lane, right? The same way that Scout lost lane, right? And it was very, very hard. But the Azir-Orianna matchup just looks terrible. I don't think that anyone's going to look to play it. And there's only been one player at Worlds that has won the Azir side against Orianna, actually, which is Faker. He won 2 games, right? And I wanted to bring up this post because I made the assessment in my mind. I was like, did I miss something? Is there something real here in the feedback, right? Because I think that's fair to do. If I'm getting a lot of feedback from one angle, let's see if there's some truth to it. And I realized, you know, with anything that has the fandom level of Faker, which I completely understand and relate to, because in the end, it's like Faker is the most accomplished player, 10 LCK titles, 3 World Championships. It's very hard not to be a fan of fucking Faker, right? But it's sad that that needs to be said every time I am making a prediction about T1 when I'm talking about the game. Right? I shouldn't have to say that every time. If T1, for example, make it and they win this world championship, that should be celebrated. It's such an incredible fucking feat. It's amazing. They kill so many demons at the same time. Faker winning a modern day world championship, making it impossible for anyone to catch up to him, right? And then there's going to be some people that say, well, I knew this all along. And those people are boring, very boring. And the issue is, right, the same way how T1 gets hated, right, when they lose, the same way they get celebrated and they win. That's just a question of them having such a massive fandom that the far ends of both spectrums are very, very loud. And I wanted to highlight this as an example of that level of delusion when it comes to the conversation, right? For example, here, right, this post is so funny to me. Because good mid-jungle synergy in game 3 of T1 versus LNG. At the start of the game, Owner on his Poppy calls out he's going to invade LNG's blue buff. So Faker on Ozzy takes an extremely early back to teleport back to lane so that he can temporarily grab Prio over Scout's Orianna and put Scout in an awkward position with respect to backing up Taz and Sejuani at the blue buff. This was pretty big sacrifice from Faker. He could have stayed in lane longer and simply absorbed pressure, saved his TP for a buy, instead his play ends up conceding Prio and a big CS deficit throughout the rest of the laning phase. It was worth it though, it got Owner and consequently the rest of the map ahead. Just a small detail I didn't see commentators or co-streamers point out. Right? So, for those who don't know, let me just show you the game, okay? This is game number 3. Just to follow along, right? So, the lane is very tough. Faker is already blown out of lane, 2 portions gone, Scout is pushing forward, and he is doing a very good job in trading, and Faker is really, really bleeding here, right? Faker now is basing, so he got fucked, right? He got fucked, he cannot lane, he cannot stay, he cannot do anything, right? Happens. Scout got fucked level 1 too, right? He got fucked level 1 too, happens, he got completely destroyed. Happens. So he's basing because he has to. No one wants to base here, no one wants to base on refillable. That's not a strategy, right? Which is fine, right? Happens. It's not that big of a deal, you know? And here, this situation as well, Owner said in an interview, which I appreciate super much, he said, Tarzan was not having a good tournament. So I was disrespecting him. That's straight up what he said, right? I'm paraphrasing, right? Tarzan was not playing well, so I was disrespecting, because this is quite disrespectful here, right? This relies on Tarzan to actually make mistakes, right? Because Owner is doing this to contest the Sejuani, so Sejuani can't make a breakthrough into the Jace lane. Keep in mind, Poppy got spotted on the ward that was on Raptor, right? So here, in this situation, if Tarzan resets blue buff, he he won the situation, right? If he resets the blue buff right now, Owner has no HP and he cannot contest. He has to walk back into his bot side. He cannot do anything, right? Which is, and then Tarzan just tanks the blue, like the blue did legit 200 damage at this point, and Owner finds the angle to tackle him into the wall. And I highlight this because the poster, right? The poster said that Azir's Prio had some kind of impact on this. But Azir is catching a wave under his turret, he has done nothing, and Scout hovers, and Scout kind of throws his lane here because he wants to save the blue from Owner. So Faker, somehow, this poster had the idea that, wow, this was all Faker, right? And this is delusion on one end. And I repeat, right? In this game, right? What Faker did insane was the fact that he defended bot dive after bot dive after bot dive. If that was a conversation, I think that's fair. He managed to defend bot dive after bot dive after bot dive, and he did a splendid job covering for Owner, right? T1 bot lane. It's like, this is an example, right? This is an example of what one of my concerns are in regards to T1, because they're playing against Aphelios and Milio, so they don't have like a super easy winning matchup bot, and basically, right, Owner hitting the beat on bot, and in terms of how LNG managed the bot wave, Azir needs to take this route, and T1 need to do like a superhero play, right? Superhero play, right? Superhero play here with Kriya taking the XP. We listen to the comps, right? This was like very well done, right? Even Faker admitted in the game, he said, yo, I could have ulted better, right? And then he could have knocked him into the wall here, could have been aimed a little better, but Faker was always defending bot in this game, right? That's fine to highlight because he did indeed sacrifice his CS to accomplish this. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I had a good thing about, is the response that I got based off of my prediction, is there something fair rooted in it? And I came to the conclusion, not really. Like people were treating me as if I told someone that they're like I insulted someone on a high level. But I think that to mention that Scout can be the advantage, and in my mind should have been the advantage for LNG coming into this series, I don't think it's a crazy thing to do, you know? And to be wrong, that's okay. But I think for me, that is framing it in a certain way to then celebrate the performance that a player like Owner and Faker had on the day. Because I think that if you look at everything through the lens of delusion, you lose the nuance that the growth and the performance actually is. And that's critical for what I believe my job is supposed to be in terms of me making content. I wanted to make sure that that's said, you know? Because I don't know, it's like my content gets translated and I think a lot of it becomes like very, very misused. And I repeat, like Faker had a very good series, fantastic series, right? Fantastic series. So back to the conversation, T1 versus JDG. I think JDG, jungle support synergy is much better on JDG's side, right? When they played, for example, Rakan Wukong together, key thing Rakan, right? Key thing Rakan. When they are playing the melee support jungle pairings, how you work together with your jungler is essential. If we look at the history, right, of T1, in the finals, they try to make sure, in the finals in LCK, they make that playstyle work by playing Lulu, right? They really try to make the playstyle work by picking Lulu, right? They try to hide this weakness of theirs, that Kriya and Owner don't play well together. Because, I repeat, there's a lot of drafts that occur where jungle and support don't need to work together. So let me outline the strengths. Let me just do a paint. I do a paint. Do a little paint. To T1. Champion Ocean, right? bot, which extends to lane phase. Like usually the whole idea of having a large champion pool is being able to counter pick deep and then putting yourself in a position where you can manage wave states super easily and making sure that jungle needs to use as little time as possible to protect you, right? Right? Range, soup, mid, contest, AD, soup. This is something that they do super well, right? When they have to play AD and support, like for example Renata Kalista, they can play both on the wave. If they are playing Lulu X, they can be both on the wave. When they play Nyla Senna, they are both on the wave, right? They are both on the wave in mid. There's no situation where Korea and owner need to take control of a river and take control of a space. Because this, I think, is what they are bad at. And I showcase this, right? I try to showcase this. If we look at their journey, right? T1 versus Team Liquid, right? Ash Renata, they had good management of bot lane. They had a big CS advantage, but Lee Sin ran the game, right? It is what it is. First game of the tournament, doesn't matter. This was a good showcase, right? You remember, guys, remember this game where Owner and Korea didn't defend their Orianna on side and they were very off sync, right? They were very off sync. And then we transition here into the Bilibili, there was the C9 series first, C9 game first, where they stomped them right, plain and simple. They had the Bard bot into the Rakan Zeri, very easy matchup for Xayah and Bard to control, and Owner ran this game, right? Owner was fucking on point, right? Really fucking strong early game from T1, right? We move into the Bilibili series, T1. Here the key thing was the Senna Tam. They are on the mid wave. They could manage the bot lane situation super well. And it really allowed them to play a certain style. It allowed Owner to be very liberated in what he needed to do. Same thing extends to here, Jinx and Tam. Both of these champions are on the wave. Taмкenge doesn't feel rushed to play on side or anything. He's going to stand on Jinx, they take the mid prio, and then they take space like that, right? We extend further into the BO5s, the same thing we saw there too, right? The pattern from T1 is that they played pairings on bot that want to be on the mid wave when the mid game comes. And then Owner plays a very liberated role and Faker itemizes in a way that allows Owner to do whatever the fuck he wants. Owner is the type of player in my mind that plays off of feel, and very instinctual. But if he has to follow a very structured game, it's like you need to be here on this wave, 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 and fuck your farm, I think this is where Owner looks weaker, right? But I think the fact that Faker itemizes a certain way and T1 play support AD pairings that can be on the mid wave and mid game allows them to hide this weakness altogether, which is a very elegant solution. Same thing here with the Varus Ashe. They need to be both on the mid wave. Same thing later, right? We have the Renata Varus. They're playing pairings where both need to be on the wave. And Poppy can play the role of ganking on side when he sees angles. He can be kind of, in fog of war and leverage himself, And I think this is super cool, And I think this encapsulates T1, right? Azir, Faker pretty much, covers up on the timings where Owner is not there, right? But look at this game, this particular game, right? Owner was not on the bot dive, he did Herald, and they crashed the wave, right? This could have ended horribly, right? But Azir crossed into bottom side, and he defended, right, eventually, and Korea is kiting. Owner could have flashed early to kill Gala, and this could have ended poorly, but the fact that T1's bot lane played fucking good enough to buy time, it's insane, right? It's really insane. And there was so much ganking going on here on bottom side that T1 played so well out of. A two-man they fucking smurfed, and this was this beautiful Gumiushi moment, right? Like they managed to just straight up win, and Poppy was not on the beat, right? Poppy was not on the beat, but it wasn't relevant in this particular game because Faker was always trying to defend bot, And also, of course, T1's bot lane just played so damn well, right? But my concern for T1 is if the enemy is a little bit more precise and they play around bot and the jungle support synergy is there, I'm worried that JDG will be capable of breaking bot. Because if something is true about JDG, right, is that their jungle support AD can really like coordinate how to really get an advantage on bot. Really get an advantage on bot, right? While T1's bot lane do it as two, right? They do it as two. Very rarely with the impact of jungle. Right? And that's my main concern for T1, is that T1's bot lane, and they need to always find the perfect pick, and then they need to secure themselves always, right? This is the key thing, right? And if they find the matchups to do so, which is entirely possible against JDG, then they can fucking do really well, right? Really well. I think in a world where T1 would leverage jungle super well to snowball such a bot lane, I think that they would look even more dangerous than they already are, right? But often they are solving the wave states through better 2v2 play, and also of a Faker sacrificing himself to be first there, and also itemizing him in a way that, of course, allows him to clear side lane on his own, you know? This was super winning, you know, they are super patient. It's like T1's awareness in terms of what they can and cannot do on bot is super nice, you know? Like this is like super good from T1. It's like the way they play mechanically is beautiful. Really insane. It's like here Faker is first again. You know, where was Poppy died, right? And he went straight into bot. He got killed. And Faker is going straight into bottom side. He's trying his best to dodge vision. Like, look at the path that he took, right, with the portal. And then he's here and he defends again. And this is beautiful. The game is over. Really game is over, right? And I think that JDG, once again, I repeat, T1 has had the better performance than JDG at this tournament, right? But we need to look at JDG as the favorite. Like what made them the favorite coming into this, right? And I think that their coordination there with mid jungle into bottom side and getting leads is insane, right? I think that the JDG Bilibili series is like the epitome of that, really epitome of that, right? We look at some more examples, right? It's like in this particular game, right? Kanavi was very far behind and they managed to defend. I think that this was a good example. Like this was just the example of how they fucking stole this game, because like time and time again they were trying to contest, and 369 and Kanavi were just straight up running it down, right? Like if they do this shit against T1, they will just lose. Like they will just lose. They are not allowed to do this shit. Like, that's what's making everyone concerned about JDG, is that they are playing like sometimes they have moments where they are really fucking sloppy. They don't get away with this against T1 because T1 convert leads and they snowball well. They don't get away with this shit, right? They really don't get away with this shit. We continue. Let me see what else I have here. What else do I have here? I think that the JDG KT game 3 is a good example of like a very good cooperation, right? It's like I think something that JDG do so well is they have a very good view of what the conditions of the games is to win, and they can match the pacing to it, right? I think they have a very good and strong idea of really analyzing what the essence of the game is, right? When they pick Wukong on 5, they have a very clear understanding of how the lane matchups will go, and they play according to it, right? That's very nice and beautiful in my mind, right? And in this game, it's like Wukong and Rakan, the way they take over the map and they take space is really a thing of beauty. And this is an example. This type of synergy, this is where I think the JDG have the edge, right? if it comes to this type of gameplay and this type of draft, when there's like melee supports involved, Missing has Rakan, and they can connect with jungle and support, JDG is better here. But I repeat, not every game is about this. Sometimes it's all about being on the wave and then playing. Like think about Lucian Nami, Aphelios Lulu meta, right? That's the best example I can make because you had both champs just on the wave contesting. And then whoever executes better, right? And I think that's crucial, right? And I think if it's range support meta, the champions Jarvan, the champions Wukong, the champions Vi, these champions become super, super strong, right? Because it becomes a question of just breaking the enemy AD, right? Right? And I repeat, if the game is like this, when it's like melee support and it's a little bit more extended, I think the JDG has a big advantage. When it comes to the matchups for T1 where they can be on the wave and they play the lanes bot, you have to give slight advantage to T1. The whole question here, right, is how can JDG develop? Because Ruler is a player that can play Varus, he can play Ashe, he can play Jinx, he can play Aphelios. And Missing has showcased super high level of range support too, but not the same amount of depth, right? Because the key word here is depth, right? Really insane depth that Korea has shown is very, very valuable. Very valuable. And when it comes to like other evolutions in terms of like the champions we haven't seen, this, by the way, is the account of Missing. They are in the loop. The amount of Senna he's been playing, Ashe, Heimerdinger, Lulu in the mix, Pyke, Karma. If Missing is ready, I can tell you that Ruler is ready too. Ruler Ezreal, Ruler Ashe, Ruler Jinx, all of these champions are legendary. Ruler Varus, very legendary. If Missing can perform, it's going to be a very, very beautiful series. Very beautiful series. Ruler Kalista, I think Ruler Kalista will be permabanned, no joke. Right? And we extend that over to like jungle has been relatively the same. You know, we haven't seen Owner Lee Sin just yet. Owner Lee Sin is going to be like it's something that can be picked right. The Wukong has been spammed. Wukong, Vi, Lee Sin. I think these are champions we're going to see, right? This is what we're going to see. Something that is worth pointing out is that all of the top laners left in the tournament, they all play Aatrox and they're all playing Rumble, right? Why would you doubt Missing if you watch LPL? No one's doubting it. No one's doubting Missing. Keep in mind, we're talking about the highest possible level of gameplay, right? So it's like, to be playing those 6 additional champs in the back pocket in the span of a week, that's a very big ask for any player, right? Aatrox is for sure getting banned versus 369 or 4-5 bans. I think Aatrox is going to be a 1-2-3 lock-in almost always, right? And the main question here will be, will people be willing to play something like Akali into it? Will people be willing to play something like Akali into it? Will people play Rumble into it? And that's a big question because both top laners are playing Akali. Like this is Zeus's account, right? A lot of Akali gameplay. Akali top into Aatrox is something that could happen, right? This could definitely happen. So let's pay attention to that, how that pans out. I think that Aatrox has developed now into the strongest like top lane champ, you know, strongest top lane blind. He is now taking the space of Renekton, right? And I don't think you need 6, you just need like 1. Trinhamvu, we're talking about support. Like we talk about support and now you talk about Bin and Rumble, right? It's like for support, you need some depth there because like Senna enables a lot, Karma enables a lot, Lux is for Kate, right? There's certain niche supports that only pairs with very specific ADs and those combos enable a lot. Like Ezreal is not the same champ if your support plays Karma or doesn't play Karma. It changes him completely. Same thing with Caitlyn. If you're capable of playing Lux, it really changes you. Or Kalista, if you super plays Renata, it changes the champion altogether. If you are a good Lucian, but your support can't play Nami, what are you doing with your life, right? As an example, right? So I continue. This is the account of Korea. He continues the same line, right? Hiram Bush, we see some Akali gameplay. It's like when Nico and Orianna's out, we're going to see some different side to both of these mid laners, right? We're going to see some Jace gameplay. We're going to see some Ahri gameplay, Talia. We're going to see some Akali, Yone. I think this is something that is going to be interesting. I think that Knight has shown so far at this tournament that he is capable of going deeper. So I think that's a question there for Faker, right? How will Faker adapt to that, you know, when he is forced to go deeper? I'm really, really curious to see how that pans out. Because over the year, right, I think there's been moments where Faker has played 2-3 champions at the super, super high level, and then what comes after that has been rough, right? So we have the likes of Sylas coming in, Akali coming in, Yone coming in, Ahri coming in, Talia coming in. You know, this is where, when people have now established that Orianna and Nico are going to be banned, right? We could easily see T1 banning Nico. We could easily see, maybe if they want to open Orianna and try Syndra into it, maybe that's something that's going to happen, right? Isn't Faker known for his champion Ocean? Well, that's something that is a thing of old, I'd say. That's something that is a thing of old, you know? In my mind, I think that no one should be allowed to play Orianna. Like even here, you see mid 1 versus Hiram Bush, you see Orianna beating out the Syndra. I think Orianna is just OP, you know? So we have to see now, what is the development when Orianna and Nico is out, right? So that's going to be super interesting. T1 Gumiushi continues with the same line. Like something I wanted to highlight is someone talked about 369, but I don't have a solo queue account here. I don't know why. But 369 has been spamming Rumble. Really, really spamming Rumble. So I think 369 is ready to drop a Rumble. So that's something that could happen. Could happen, definitely. You know? But I would say I don't think Rumble ever gets through. I think it's just a question of if JDG is on blue side for some reason and they first pick Rumble, maybe they play around with the idea of making the enemy ban Rumble too, right? Having Rumble ready enables you to sometimes gain a ban, you know? That's the key thing. So yeah, this is 369's account apparently, and as you can see, it's just Rumble City, right? You're just spamming Rumble. If we do everything matchup for matchup, because we're talking about this matchup for so long, right? Coin toss in JDG favor, they took red side. They took red side. Counter pick support. This shows to me that they are ready to counter pick support and they are ready to go deep. Something to highlight, right, is that T1 cannot scrim anyone. Here you have a situation where T1 is up against 3 teams, in theory. They are playing against 3 teams at the same time because these other 3 teams, they are scrimming each other, helping each other, 2v2ing each other, 1v1ing each other in preparation to fuck T1. T1 has some scrims to do against LCK, right? But this is not the same. How on earth can you think to yourself that that's the same? Why do those seeds scrim each other but don't scrim with T1? Because they are all from the same region. They are 3 LPL teams. There's a lot of pride on the line. If T1 beats out all 3 of them, that would be a catastrophe. It would be a catastrophe. And then it's like if T1 is scrimming the other teams, right? Like Weibo or Bilibili, everything they do is just leaked. Why is it not the same? Are the LCK team that much worse? Yeah. Or you think KDF is on the same level as these semi-finalists? It's not quite the same, right? My point is that T1 is at a disadvantage here. T1 is plain and simple at a disadvantage here. That's all I'm trying to say. roster changes are happening. It's like, even if we don't know exactly which teams are scrimming them, but you think KT and Gen G, after being bombed out of the tournament, that they are like, they want to scrim? I can't imagine that's the case. Right? Point is one of those things again, where if T1 managed to make it through, it's very solid, you know? Very solid, you know? It's very, very tough. We continue. So, if we go lane for lane, Zeus versus 369. I think 369 is a better tank player. Very, very good player at setting up your AD for success, right? I think this is something that 369 does super good. He is like the ultimate fucking bodyguard, okay? He is the ultimate bodyguard. But Zeus, the way he fucking plays fights is a thing of beauty. Like that Aatrox game that he played, like he made Gala look bad together with Owner. Zeus is monstrous. Like this is basically the sword against the shield. But I think currently, in terms of what the top meta is, where we're in a world where there's a lot of, like, Jace is working, we have the Rumble also being so strong, and the top lane meta being so dynamic, I think that's better for Zeus. I think that's better for Zeus. So I give Zeus the advantage here. But I have to highlight, if 369 needs to play the role, if 369 needs to play a game where he needs to support Knight and support his AD to succeed, 369 is better in that type of a game. If Ruler or Knight is in a position to carry, this 369 is much more suited for such a game. I think Zeus is a very strong aggressor, but if they're ever playing a game where they don't need the aggressor and it's centered around other roles in the game, I think that Zeus is worse. So for me, this is just an elaboration of what I'm expecting from the top situation, right? I think that Zeus is a better player suited to play something like Rumble. But if every game 369 is just blind picking Aatrox and the answers are not working and he gets to play the K'Sante and he's doing super well, I think that 369 is a fucking monster. Really fucking monster, you know? So basically my assessment of top. If the top lane situation gets weird in terms of what champions are effective, I think that Zeus is the better player. If we're going to see the same matchup top every game, I think 369 is the better player. But to highlight once again, these are two fantastic players. Two fantastic players. Really good players. I think 369, he had that fucking terrible game on Gragas, which was horrible. He laned super well and then he fucking ran it down. Like 369, Kanavi, they have some blunderous moments, you know? Really blunderous moments. But we're gonna be in some spots where 369 is gonna pick a cheeky Ornn to win the game, and everyone will remember how good fucking 369 is. For the likes of Zeus and Bin, 369 is the ultimate test. So in my mind here, right, I think in a world where Aatrox becomes the go-to blind every game, and let's say there is no answer to Aatrox, and there's no room to ban, and we just see Aatrox trades, both sides, and JDG are very happy to play K'Sante into Aatrox as an example, or Renekton. I think this is a very, very strong, good situation for JDG. If Zeus can get weird, I think things can get interesting. I think this is a very competitive top matchup. Jungle, Kanavi is a weird player, man. Kanavi is a very weird player. He's had some low lows. I think that Kanavi as a player, I think that his execution around support AD and around mid, I think in terms of hitting beats, like when I say hitting beats, right, the beats in the game is like level 3 gank windows, clearing full first clear into first base, 10 CS into Drake. I think these beats, Kanavi is really, really good at, right? Being on the right wave on bot, being on the right wave, you know? Classic ideas of jungle. I think this is something that Kanavi does better to me than Owner. Owner is the jungler's jungler in essence, right? The players that play jungle, that play against him in solo queue, really have a high appreciation for Owner because mechanically I think that he's really, really good, and I think that he's a very instinctual player. I think that junglers have a high appreciation for players like this, while coaches have appreciation for players that hit beats, right? I underline all of this with Kanavi has definitely had some fucking stinger games. And that was true in the regular split too. That's why it was hard to rate Kanavi. Because Kanavi had bad games and then he had great games. It was very hard to predict what's going to come coming into the lobby, in my mind. I think that a key thing here in this matchup is that we're gonna see some Wukong action, we're gonna see some Vi action. In a world where Kanavi plays a bad game, like he did against, for example, KT on occasion, I think that that's straight up going to be a loss in a lot of cases. But the key thing for me there, right, is if Kanavi is having a good game, I think he's way sharper at defending dives, way sharper at making sure he's there on stacked waves, way sharper in how he coordinates with his teammates. And I think that's, in a lot of games, giga important. When Kanavi is having a good game, he definitely is the best jungler in the world. So, that's a big question mark. I think that Kanavi has higher highs, but Owner is showing some good form. But I still have the reservation, right? If I talk about Owner, mechanically super good, right? Instinctually does some good things. Team fighting, really fucking good. But in between that, right? If there's going to be a structured game where he needs to defend bot dives or be there on stacked waves, I don't trust Owner to do that well. But maybe we'll see games where that's not going to be the case, right? But I think it's going to be much tougher for T1's bot lane to get as good conditions as they did against JDG. Because on top of that, right, we have the two best laning bot lanes that we saw so far, by far, right? And thank you very much for the 500 bits, mate. Before we go to bot, let's talk about mid lane. One good series, best jungle in the world. Kanavi had one good series. We're judging Kanavi by the whole year, you know? Like Kanavi has the capacity to play as the best jungler in the world. Owner? Oh. I don't think Owner is the best jungler in the world, no. I don't know who said that, but whatever. Mid lane, I think it's going to be super interesting how the mid lane pool is going to really progress when Nico and Orianna's out. I think that's where both Faker will be tested and also where Knight will be tested. If we look at the champions that these teams have played so far, like let's take, like we have 4 Orianna games, but then we have the Nico, Ahri, Vex, and Jace. And Jace was the loss against LNG, right? And then we have the likes of T1. If we look at what Faker has played so far, I believe he has played Orianna, Azir, and then a game of Sylas. So this is, let's take a look at the tournament. So he played 2 Sylas, 4 Orianna, 2 Azir. So, in the development of this, I am super curious to see what will happen when Faker doesn't play Orianna, and Nico probably is something that is going to... Nico is probably going to be something that is banned or contested, right? If we just look at what they banned this whole tournament, right? It's like banned by T1, 75% Nico, right? He's definitely, like Faker is definitely someone that can play Nico. I'm not worried about that, right? But I'm curious where that development is going to go. So, Faker's been playing Akali, Yone, Sylas, right? Those are champions that are not good in every game, right? While on the other side, I think the Knight, he has showcased like Ahri, he has showcased he has played some Syndra, you know? I think this is where we are going to see the depth of the players, right? And I think the Knight, throughout his summer, as an example, has showcased a lot of champions, a wide array of champions. A crucial detail for me when it comes to this matchup, right, is that I don't think that Knight nor Faker is the type of players that are really like competitive in lane, you know? I think BDD and Chovy are those guys when it comes to like lane phase. But I want to highlight that T1's past pains have been in Faker not having a deep enough champion pool. But that hasn't been tested at this tournament just yet. So maybe it's a mute factor. You remember the last time they played, you had the fucking whole Nautilus situation, right? You had him at the Messiah playing the K'Sante being super good at it. In the regular split in summer, we had the Arm Pain, right? You had the likes of him playing Azir and Nico. Those were his two champs, right? But currently, right, he played a very strong Sylas, very good Azir, very good Orianna. And the question is, how will that evolution progress? Because if he's there and ready to go, really fucking good, you know? And I think he's ready to fucking go, right? Even though I mentioned this as a truth of the past, it's a question I'm raising coming into this best of 5. While Knight has been tested and has gone deep, Knight doesn't play Azir. He hates Azir. Hard disagree with this take. Faker is historically known for his champion pool. Historically, yes, but this year, no. This year, no. This year, really not. I don't think it will come down to lane phase either. I think it's more about champion choice. And I think also it comes down to champion pool depth, yes. And additionally, I think both of these players are like amazing team fighters. Like both of them have had pop-off moments when it comes to team fights. And I think that they are very aware of the bigger picture of the game. I think that's what makes Knight and Faker a little bit similar. Knight does a lot to support his lanes and support his jungle. Super much. Faker does too. Faker gets banned out on 4-5. I think that in most games, mid-jungle support, mid-jungle top is going to be picked 1, 2, 3. Okay? I think they're going to be picked 1, 2, 3. But I repeat, T1 has not played that many games at this tournament, and he played Azir, played Orianna, played Sylas. The question is, what happens when he has to go deeper, bro? Or what happens in a case where Sylas is a weaker champ? That's what I'm curious about when it comes to Faker. Because that has been a point that you can definitely give criticism towards Faker. Because there's been many times where he doesn't play a lot of champs. There's been a very large period throughout the year where he was very effective on a set few champs. And I think that he's not going to be allowed to play Orianna. He doesn't need to, but I think Ori, he will not be allowed to pick. I think that for sure, like if you are from JDG side, it's like I would not want to be in a position where the enemy gets, like I think like if like being in a position where you do something like this, I think is fucking fair play, right? And then the question is, how do they manage Nico, right? Maybe they want to play Nico themselves, but Nico is something that T1 has banned the whole tournament, even though he played it, right? Yo, Elisha, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nico, they banned a lot, right? I'm just raising this as a question based on the information available, guys. Right? Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it. Pikachu, thank you very much for the tier 1. Ruler plays Kate. He has done historically. He hasn't played much in solo queue. I'm not so sure, you know? Wouldn't they just blind pick Azir in such a case? They could, yeah. But Azir doesn't look super exciting at this tournament, right? I think Renata could be tied to maybe... I think the tricky thing about... I wonder if they are ready to do something like the Ashe support with Kalista, right? Because this is something that Missing has played, right? But this third ban could be Kate or Renata, something like this, you know, from JDG side. And then we could have like Nico, like maybe these are champions that will be like contested, you know? And then you put something like Rakan, something like this, you know? Like you are going to end up somewhere here, you know? And then you play the game, you know? And then if enemy already banned Kate, maybe you remove, you open Renata, and then you ban Kate. And this is like somewhere where you land, right? And then there's gonna be like contention for Javan, and then people are going to look at, for example, Poppy, you know? And there's going to be that development, you know? Is Javan ban useful? I think no. If you're planning to ban Rumble and Orianna, right? You go in this direction, right? Like Javan's value is very limited in such a game. Why should be that afraid of Kate? Because Gumayushi is very good at Caitlyn. And then you play this by ear. So we continue to the question of bot lane, right? The big question here is, I think that laning-wise, JDG's bot lane, they have gotten away with super much. And I want to highlight that historically, Missing and also On have been fantastic at playing range champs. I don't know where this narrative comes from, that they don't play ranged, when they were dominating in ranged metas. The key advantage here that T1 has is that they have, of course, a wealth of advantage in terms of time spent playing it in recent times, right? In recent times, they've done a super good job, and they were first, right? So, the main question here will be, Missing on red side, will he have enough of a pool to go into 5 pick and slam some kids? I think this could get dirty enough that people are gonna pick Karma with Varus and then just play the lane, you know? I think that shit can get very dirty. And my concern here is that I think that Kanavi will impact bot better than Owner does. That's my main scare, you know, for T1. Is that I think that in that bot lane that would be so fucking explosive, I think that Kanavi will have an easier time impacting that. But Kanavi has had some poor games, but he's also had some great games. And while Owner has played really well, I just worry that he's not going to be able to hit the beats as he needs to. And then the main question for JDG's bot lane. I know that Ruler is capable of playing Ashe. He's capable of playing fucking Senna if he needs to. He can play fucking all of those champs. Caitlyn, I'm not so sure, right? Caitlyn could be a permaban still for them. But Ashe, Varus, Aphelios, Jinx, that direction, he can do super good. Missing, I already showed his account right. He's spamming the champs to get into the box. He wants to get into the box, you know? He wants to compete. Look how much Senna he's playing. So in my mind, right, I think this is going to be a very close series. Someone asked why did JDG pick red side? They pick red side because they want to answer. They think that the first picks, like Orianna and, for example, Rumble, they can just ban them. And then after those are out, counter picking is always better. And then you can pick 3 into ban. You can ban into pick on 4, and then you can pick on 5. If the enemy doesn't have a strong first pick, then the red side is almost always better. The thing with Ruler playing Varus Ashe is that it will force JDG into playing a style that they really aren't comfortable with. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I want to reference back to JDG's like most dominant times. That is when they played range support. Really, they were diving. You know, it's like Billy dove the shit out of T1, right? They did with the Lulu, but that was because they got doved by JDG in the first place. I think JDG is insanely precise in how they leverage mid jungle to break bot lanes. I think that's like the most dangerous thing, you know? I don't think Ruler plays Nyla. Ruler played Nyla when he was on Genji. He played a lot of it when he was on Genji. Is missing? Yeah, this is missing. But I underline, if Kanavi has an off game, if 369 has an off game, you don't get away with this in the current form of T1. You don't get away with it. So that's like a big question mark for JDG. Because truthfully, T1 has played better games than JDG at the tournament. And now I have to say that with everything that I've said, I favor JDG. I think this is going to be a very close series though. I say 55-45. Very close. Even closer than that. Very fucking close series. this is going to be the greatest series. This is going to be the greatest series because there's only two storylines that can follow from here. Either JDG complete the golden road or T1 fucking conquer everything after having the roughest summer split ever with injuries, coming into this fucking world championship, finding form again, and then really like winning a modern world championship for Faker, making sure that no one ever comes close to the legacy that Faker leaves behind by the time he retires in a couple of years. That is crazy. Both of the storylines here are completely immaculate. And I think if someone told me that they predict 3-2 T1, I think that's fair play. T1 has had wonderful games here at this tournament, right? And I think the key thing, guys, the key thing here is JDG, can Kanavi impact bot enough and break those volatile matchups, right? Can he do it, right? Can he fucking do it? Or will he fucking run it down? Will JDG be able to compete with the bot lane supports, right? I think on T1's side, right? Will Faker have a deep enough pool? Will Owner's lack of ability to hit the right timings be not good enough? Will Zeus find pop-off performance on the unique exotic champions? Or will the mountain that is 369 just fucking push him away with a K'Sante and just be there as the wall and the shield for his carries? It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time, guys. I can't wait. I really can't wait, guys. This is gonna be great. Have T1 and JDG the two best boy lanes? Yeah. Like in terms of laning, they are insane. Insane. Absolutely crazy. I hate people saying T1 JDG is the real final. People say that so many times, and then the team just loses. Well, I think it's fair to say it based off of what we know. But sometimes things that we don't know reveal themselves in BO5s, right? These are the two best teams on the tournament with all the available information. Obviously, if Bilibili make it through, they are a very formidable opponent, but they are not the favorite. Unless they like... Even in a world where Bilibili stomps Weibo, I don't know what they could do to make the argument strong enough for them to be like the favorite. You know? It's more about JDG and T1 really like sucking ass, you know? But I'm telling you, like, I've loved Bilibili since day one. I've defended Bilibili so fucking much. I've defended them so much, man. I have defended them insanely much. I love Bilibili. You defended Scout a lot too? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Scout was my #1 player on my list. What a disappointment. What a disappointment. Fucking Scoot. You had Scout first, like in the world, aren't you embarrassed? I knew that would follow the Chovy thing. Hasn't Kanavi not looked good this world? The thing is, Kanavi has had amazing games and he's had some shit games. Guys, me and Steph Curry Sim, we have a relationship. It's all good. Like, I know when he's joking. he was setting himself up to mention the Chovy on first. How good is Ruler Kalista? It should be permanent. I think we're gonna be somewhere here. Like, we are gonna be somewhere here, guys. Unless the plan is, like, they see Orianna ban and they're like, yo, we're gonna just fucking slam Nico first pick. That could be something. Like, that could be something. Like, if T1 bust out this, I like it. I like it. I think Rakan is getting banned because you have to ban one, either Xayah or Rakan. And I think at that point, you just ban Rakan. Eris Javan? The thing is, it's like, why would you care about Javan if you're Nico? You don't care so much. Like, imagine they drop this as a starter, right? Like, this could be some gaming, go 4-5, you know? Like, this is a comfort spot on Honor, you know? I think this could be like a good start for T1, you know? Like, if T1 go into the series, if they ban Nico on blue, I think that's way weaker than them being capable of picking Nico on blue. I think Aatrox looks pretty OP. Like, this could definitely happen too. Like, this can definitely happen. And it's like you do something like that, right? You would do something like this, and then you pick your fucking top laner, you know? And then it's like, here you get to see whatever the fuck he has prepared, and then like he would just pick something mid, you know? Like, JDG would just pick one of his champions into Nico and eat it for what it is, you know? Aatrox blind is something that's gonna go down, guys. Like, if we look at some of the games, right? It's like everything divulged into it. You see T1 here, they go Aatrox on 2 here with only Rumble ban, you know? You have Aatrox here on 3 with no additional top lane bans. You know, it's like the tournament definitely went in that direction. JDG, let me see. The Aatrox here on 3 from JDG, blind with only Poppy out, right? Like, Aatrox blind will happen. It will happen. I think if JDG is blue, I think that they should look to do something like I think on blue side Javan ban is good, and then I think that it's tough because you kind of need to pick your poison here. I think the main point of nuance here is, do you want to, like, if enemy starts banning bot laners, you should line yourself up to first pick mid. If they don't ban bot laners, you should ban a mid laner to first pick a bot laner. Because you want to end up on Kalista Renata if it's open, or Xayah Rakan if it's open. But most of the time, Red Side is going to just ban that, right? It's like they're going to stick to these bans, right? And then if that's the case, you ban Azir, and then you set up for Orianna over Nico. Or you can just ignore Azir altogether, ban Renata, and just still pick, like, if enemy wants to play Orianna, like you play Orianna and enemy picks Azir, you are still happy. Something like that, you know? I think you should never give Orianna. Never give Orianna, guys. Never give Orianna. Never give Orianna, honestly. This champion is OP. Even though for my pick'ems, I crystal balled, you know, I have my Orianna here. I will let you guys know that, yeah, you should always ban this champ.